All right, click the links to join channel, become a member, check out, subscribe to our Patreon, Odyssey, Bit Chute, Gab, or Telegram. Those are free speech sites, so, be forewarned. Asbestos panties. So gaslighting is where they lie right to your face, and they try to make you think that your interpretation is a false view of reality. So with this Lord of the Rings thing, one of the writers for the show got his nose a little bit pressed out of shape when someone said, yeah, this is like a departure from Tolkien's story, obviously. Like many interviews and the information you've released about the show that comes out next month is clearly this is a loose reimagining of the original story that doesn't have the feel of the story. And, heaven forbid somebody giving an opinion that is pretty closely in alliance with the truth. It's just not Lord of the Rings. This is something else. I'm sure it'll do. I'm sure it'll. I can't imagine anyone. There's no excitement on social media for Lord of the Rings, which is very bad news when you spent $750 million on a show. There's no buzz about it whatsoever. This is Wheel of Time's bad, but Lord of the Rings has got, 100 times the name recognition of Wheel of Times. And Wheel of Times is a show nobody talks about. I have no idea what the return on investment for that is, but this is going to be horrible. So they're out here doing damage control ahead of time, and it seems like they're just making it worse. Yeah, they're gaslighting us. So they lie to you, and then they kind of they're trying to make you feel that you're just crazy. You've got a false view of reality, or you're not seeing what is literally in front of you. AfroHobbits, gaslighting globalist hobbits, really. So the thing is with soy boys, and women more so than men can kind of be pressured into falling for gaslighting. Yeah, either confident people or people who just, somewhere on the spectrum, or just like honest people who are just, oh, you asked for an honest opinion, and you asked for an opinion, I'm going to give you an honest one. Like, they don't understand the concept of, they understand political correctness and being kind, but saying the honest opinion in a kind way, but you still ask for an honest opinion, so you're going to get it. It's not going to use epithets, but you're still going to get what you asked for, because otherwise, why would you ask? I mean, if you wouldn't ask, you get what I'm saying. It's like we assume that we want to treat you like the adults and with respect to give you what you asked for, which is an honest opinion on a show. And it's like, oh, this looks horrible. And then what happens now is on social media is someone asks for that, or you express an opinion, and instead of talking about the core argument about whether or not the show is going to be good, whether or not it's in accord with Tolkien's spirit of the show, is its immediate deflection and ad hominem to attack the person who gave their opinion on the show, instead of addressing the argument that deals with the show. Because they can't. Like, they know the show's, it's going to be horrible, and it doesn't follow from the spirit of the book. Obviously it doesn't, but they can't. I mean, you can clearly look at it and you're like, yeah, I don't know what this is, but it's not Tolkien. Oh, what are you, just an istophobe? Wait a minute, now that's an ad hom. Why don't you address how this is in alliance with Tolkien? And the most I can say for the writers of this show is that they seem sincere when they say that they feel that this has deep roots in Tolkien. And you look around, you look at the stuff they released from the show, it's like, okay, maybe you're so far in an echo chamber that you legitimately feel that way, but it's just not the truth. So someone said the show was like vaguely connected, which, is honestly, it's a nice way to say it. I wouldn't even have gone that far. So the writer says, we don't feel that way. Well, yeah, okay, I'm great. You feel that way, but obviously the critic felt differently. It's like, why are you saying something that doesn't have any objective basis in reality? You're just talking about your opinions. You don't need to try to rebut somebody's opinion. And especially when you rebut somebody's opinion with just more emotions. It's like, if anything, please go to some facts to rebut something. Like, have some strength in your argument. When you base your rebuttal is based on emotion, it's like, well, it's just useless. But it's whatever. It's just, I mean, they're so far in an echo chamber. It's like they're confusing facts with reality. We feel like deep roots of this show are in the books and in Tolkien. And if we didn't feel that way, we'd be terrified to sit up here. Well, you're sitting up there and you feel confident sitting up there because you're so far in an echo chamber that you think this is normal. And nobody has ever told you no. So here's the thing: only soy boys and women can be pressured into like agreeing, going along with gaslighting. We don't. We just give you their opinion. But soy boys filter their worldview through this politically correct herd filter. It's a complicated matrix of their own ethnicity, sexuality, their perceived place on this Marxist oppression index before they give you the answer, because they're kind of acting out of fear. They give the answer that the puppet masters want to hear, not their personal opinion, which presumably was asked for. It's why they can change their beliefs from day to day, because they're just saying what won't get them attacked by other soy boys and cat ladies in a social media dog pile. They don't want to be pushed out from the herd with a "yikes, my guy, bad take," which is a signal to other soy boys that this person needs to be pressured back into compliance with an opinion. It's like, oh yeah, it's just my opinion. You know, we're on the left here, but you know that the Star Wars trilogy sucked. It's like, oh, you didn't like diversity, and I didn't even mention that. I just didn't feel like, oh well, it's an immediate deflection and ad hominem because they don't have an argument otherwise. It's just a way to pressure people into compelled behavior, which is, you know, it's weird that they don't get tired. Maybe some of them do get tired of it. They're just saying what people want to hear. Where right-wing people are just more likely to give you an honest opinion when asked. We're less concerned about what soy boys on Twitter think. They can spend hours a day on Twitter. You can look through their tweet history and you see like the tweet history over time, and then you divide it by day and you're like, oh, you tweet hundreds of times a day. That's not healthy. That's like, you're so deep into this that you think Twitter matters, and you're doing something, you're engaging with something. It's like, no, you're not. You're just getting this confirmation bias to stay in this echo chamber. And then you ask these people like, oh, so did you actually watch the show that you're defending so strongly? Oh, you know what? I haven't actually got around to it. Money's tight this month, so I don't actually have Amazon, so I'm not subscribed to it. But I know it's going to be great because it has diversity in it. Okay, but I mean, you're spending all this time on Twitter defending it. That's a little bit weird. Everything they do is kind of this virtue signaling, dopamine signaling for social media belly rubs from basically future cat ladies for most of these people. So no, this is not Lord of the Rings, obviously. It's Marxist propaganda to erase Europeans from their own stories. It also says that only European stories have value, which is hysterical, but not European people. The stories have to be told, but they have to be substituted for one group for another, instead of just simply telling a story from, I don't know, anywhere else. Like there are other stories from around the world. Oh yeah, but we want to do a bait and switch with name recognition, because the truth of the matter is, if they're telling a story from around the world, they suspect it wouldn't hit as hard. The thing is, if you write a good story, it will catch on. It might take a few years. They did the same thing with Anne Rice, which was written in 1976, an interview with the vampire, where they did a bait and switch, and they did it with this, which was written 100 years ago. And you just say, oh yeah, why don't you write your own books, and if they catch on, then they can be later be made into movies, because they don't want to wait for that. And I go, okay, well, you don't want to wait years and years for books and movies to catch on. I get that. Well, why don't you just go straight to the script writing, write a movie, write a show that has all these elements of, you know, diversity and globalist propaganda that you want. It could be all this kind of nonsense all in one show, because then they know nobody will watch it right from the start. So they're telling you the truth of the matter is nobody wants this at all. They don't want this kind of diversity and inclusion and equity, because it's just, we know it's propaganda. So even people on the left are looking at this like, people on the left don't want to be you're preaching to the choir. They don't want to be preached to. They think that, oh, the people on the right need to watch this. Yeah, but we don't want to. Oh, can we force you to watch it? No. So, I mean, the whole thing is pointless. You're making propaganda for neither side's really interested in it. I mean, you'll get the first 3 episodes of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. I'm sure that will have huge numbers, because it is Lord of the Rings. You got name recognition. I'm sure the first 3 episodes will be pretty good. Maybe not even pretty good. And then after that, it's like, oh, this doesn't feel like Lord of the Rings. You're telling some other story. But that's not to say that it won't necessarily be good, but it won't be Lord of the Rings. But it's like, well, why didn't you just be honest right from the start and call it something else? Make something else. You wouldn't have had to pay $250 million for name recognition. Lord of the Rings. You can make a fantasy story set in a fantasy world. People have been doing it for hundreds of years. It doesn't have to be Lord of the Rings. He himself took it from earlier fantasy works. You know, he did a great job, but it's like, you might do a great job also. Set it in some fantasy world, like God, who was that girl who wrote that comic book? I forget the name of it. ElfQuest. Was it called ElfQuest? And it's like, that was globalist propaganda, and it was really shallow and light, and it was just nonsense. But you know, it's like, that's a story that you created, you own the rights to it. It's like, that's the way to go about it. And I'm sure it wasn't a huge hit, but at least it's honest. So I'd be shocked if Rings of Power did well. People want Lord of the Rings. They don't want somebody using Lord of the Rings to push globalist propaganda. It's 2022, but by now people are pretty well caught up to, like, they just say, oh, this is woke. And that meaning of woke means different things to different people, but we all kind of mean, it's just like protective coloration for, you know, dangerous amphibians or something. It's like, oh, stay away, this is going to be dangerous. This is just going to be propaganda. It's like, oh, you don't know that. Yeah, we know that, because kind of this, they took the mask off in 2015 with Disney Star Wars. That first Star Wars was the thing that woke up a lot of people to realize Disney itself was the future of Disney, that they're willing to subvert and corrupt such a huge name to push this propaganda. But then it happened in a bunch of other Hollywood stuff, and you realize, oh, this is all a Hollywood. Amazon, Netflix, Disney, it just loosely call that Hollywood. It's like, yeah, that's all. That's the future. That's the future of these streaming formats. This is what you're gonna get. So you can just turn it off, you can do something else, you can watch old stuff, but it's not going to change. They painted themselves into this kind of, because they couldn't change now, and even if they wanted to change, even if they don't want to change, that's what it just comes down to. Like, this is a religion to them. So somebody said that this is a departure from Lord of the Rings, and the actor gets his nose. It's like, this is not Lord of the Rings when you change the characters. Like, a child would look at this and go, oh, where's the original Lord of the Rings? How come this doesn't look like Peter Jackson's movie? Oh, this is a new, better Lord of the Rings. But, you know, it's like, with kids thinking, you look at this and go, oh, this sucks. This just doesn't like, it's lightning in a bottle, but like, you were never, even if you did the best job you could, you were never going to capture Peter Jackson's original trilogy. But the thing to do would have been to come as close as possible. And, like, you obviously departed from that, as you did with Wheel of Time, as you did with the vampire, not Lestat, what's the vampire, the books, Interview with the Vampire books that came out, that's made into a show that's coming out. It's like, oh, so is it like French and English? No, these are like, oh, this is just more globalist propaganda. It's like, you can ad hom and deflect and insult us all you want, but it doesn't get us to watch your stuff when there's just no spark. There's just no feeling with this kind of stuff, when these aren't the characters. Lord of the Rings is based on European mythology and Tolkien's experience growing up in a small village. As he said in many interviews himself, there's no shortage of interviews describing how he crafted these stories. It's his distinctly European story, and the globalists are subverting and corrupting a European story to make one for globalist propaganda, which doesn't include European people in it, which is like, yeah, it's Ford racing, but it's an electric car built by Toyota. This is just nonsense. This is gaslighting. Nobody's going to watch this, but then the media actors and directors will just attack the customers for not paying money to be brainwashed with this, you know, critical anti-white theory from the Frankfurt School. The Harfoots, the Hobbits. The Hobbits are split into 3 groups. They're supposed to be Mediterranean, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, Greek, whatever. But the Amazon marginalizes, oppressed, and disenfranchises them. Literally disenfranchises them from their own story to replace them with people who were never in the original story. No, why would people watch this? Gaslighting doesn't get us to pay the monthly fee. This isn't free. This isn't on TV paid for with commercials. See, this is the different thing with these streaming shows, is that you can't just turn on the TV and you pay for it with a commercial. You got to subscribe to this, or if you're still subscribed, it's like every month you're looking at these streaming services and you're wondering, like, oh, is it worth the $15? I unsubscribe. And if there's nothing to watch, you're going to unsubscribe. You're not just going to be a dead subscriber. It's just, you're not going to pay, throw out $200 a year for something that you legitimately don't use. So will this get new subscribers? Oh God, no way in hell. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, check me out, subscribe to our Patreon. I'll see you guys all next episode.